This is Fort Stevens on Legendary difficulty. The enemy has 47,000, we have 38,000. End up getting 9 to 1, the enemy loses 37,000. And a total in the two battles, the enemy loses a total of 70,000. So it's a pretty easy battle. Any battle that is close to 1 to 1 is very easy on Legendary. And the other thing is that this follows the same pattern of almost every battle in Ultimate General Civil War. You come in with you start with a small force, so there's a desperate fight. This makes the battles feel closer than they are. You get reinforcements, and at some point you sort of stop the enemy charges, and here the enemy is scaled up. I think this is what I'm going to see in future battles, because I really scaled up my army for Cold Harbor, and I think I'm going to see more of this, oversized enemy units. So in the next two battles, and probably in Richmond as well. So yeah, these are large enemy units. Both sides have 200 plus guns, and on Legendary, enemy artillery is really deadly, so that's a factor. Because in this battle, you're pretty much either in the open or in a fortified, prepared position. The thing that's different on Legendary is how good enemy artillery is, and I'm going to talk about that later. First of all, Pandakraut saw the videos. I watched the Cold Harbor videos, and I saw it. Pandakraut, no surprise, caught it also. What happened in that battle was that I took 2 victory locations in the last phase that I was able to fight. So on the north map, I was able to break through the one fortified position that didn't have a victory location. And that got me behind the enemy army with my cav, which was the goal. I wanted the cav to then do some spotting, find the enemy artillery, and then actually I had almost 600 guns. My 600 guns were then supposed to tear the enemy to pieces. So I was just in the right place to do, I think, 20 or 30,000, inflict 20 or 30,000 more casualties. I thought easily I could have gotten 90,000 kills out of these two battles, and maybe 100,000. And that's what I was going for. I'm really kind of have it as a hidden goal, just to kill as many as I can, just to drive up the enemy casualties for no purpose other than it's just great fun. So I did this in my very first Brigadier General playthrough. It was just how many can I kill? And yeah. So at this point of the battle, the enemy breaks one of my fortifications, but I'm going to gang up on him and drive him out of there and then retake it. My infantry is now here, my first bunch of infantry, and yeah, this is, yeah, the odds of him breaking through anywhere are not very good, particularly with detached skirmishers. Detached skirmishers do 2 things. One, they count as a backup unit. They put fire into any units into melee, almost guaranteeing that the enemy loses the melee battle. And they ensure that the enemy retreats in the right direction, which is away from you and not behind your lines. If an enemy unit ever retreats behind your lines, it's a nightmare. So unless you have a whole bunch of units to the rear of your army to run them down and kill them. Well, at this phase in the battle, we're a little light on units, and we're outnumbered, as you can see by the red bar. I mean, that's about 6 times larger or 7 times larger than the blue bar. So yeah, we don't want enemy units retreating behind our lines, and detached skirmishers are good for that. So I decided not to replay, or I had saved during the Battle of Cold Harbor, because it's a really long battle and I have to save because of file size. My game will just crash if I don't have multiple saves and multiple small sizes of recording files. So I had saves. I chose not to go to my last save when I took the 2 flags. And the reason I took the 2 flags was I was chasing after his artillery to kill it. And I thought on the southern map I was okay. It wouldn't end the battle. I thought it was the northern map that ended the battle. But Nope, any two flags, I think, in the battle is over. So I thought about it. I thought, okay, I can attack in the north and the south on the southern map and get behind his line without tripping the flags and then kill him. And I know I had a ton of time. I mean, I bet I had an enormous, who knows how many hours of just blasting away at the enemy and wiping out his artillery and killing 20 or 30 more of his infantry. And in the south, I was behind his lines with my cav, and I was going to get spotting on his positions, and then it was just, I had almost 600 guns that were going to be on the field. It was going to be, just shooting fish in a barrel. Now, he was going to do damage to me because he had a lot of guns, but I had almost 600 guns, so that was going to be a good time. All I had to do was not trip flags. So, yeah, the tragedy is that if I had the ability to not end the battle until the end of the third day, then this would, I wouldn't have to think in these terms. This would be a very easy exercise. Just go get them and kill them all. I mean, it's over. But because of the way the game is designed, you take two flags and you have to stop. Well, at the end of this, as you'll see, the enemy manpower pool goes up 7,000. If I had killed 30,000, I think the enemy manpower pool still would have gone up. But that's not the point. The point is, I just wanted to kill them all. That's the point. I didn't want to capture their... I wasn't thinking in terms of capturing weapons. I was just thinking in terms of, just want to kill them all. Just drive up the kills. This campaign's going to get a lot of kills, as my other previous campaigns did on Brigadier General and Major General. And I just want to see what, that's kind of what I'm driving for. Yeah, just a quick word about artillery on Legendary. On Legendary, the two things that I've noticed is that the enemy gets, of course, great units and great weapons, and that really changes how the battle unfolds. So I think most people think that enemy infantry units with 3 stars are the biggest threat to your army. I don't think so. I'm not at all concerned about his 3-star infantry. I can face his 3-star infantry with 1-star infantry and win. I'm not concerned about his infantry a tiny bit. If you fight with combined arms, you're going to win. The enemy, like what? Look right now. The enemy is charging with a lone infantry unit. If I have infantry and artillery fighting against just his infantry, I'm going to slaughter him. That's a loser. By the way, it works the other way too. If you're fighting infantry against his infantry, you're going to take enormous losses. But if you're fighting with combined arms, which means your infantry and artillery fight together against his units, you're going to crush him. Part of it is the damage your artillery does to his morale. But part of it is that you're just ganging up on him. You're just concentrating enormous firepower on his units. It doesn't matter how many units he has. If you have concentrated infantry and artillery fire on his units one at a time, you're going to break them. The thing that I found different about Legendary is his artillery and his skirmishers. And that's the thing that you have to have respect for on Legendary difficulty. He's going to get 10-pounders and 24-pound howitzers, manned by 3-star units that have unit perks. And they are going to do a lot of damage. You have to stay in cover, and you have to think all the time about where your units are and about the damage that artillery is doing to your army. And then, needless to say, when you advance against the enemy, you want to advance with artillery, infantry, snipers, and cav together to do as much damage to his artillery. Over and over in this campaign, I'm looking for his artillery and looking to take it out. His skirmishers I want to take out because I just hate them. But His artillery I need to take out because his artillery is the killer that I'm most afraid of, the killer on the battlefield. Fortunately, Union artillery is much better. 20-pound Parrotts and 24-pound howitzers working together, a player using them together in combination against the enemy will outperform the enemy artillery. So first of all, you have more artillery than the enemy. Secondly, you have better artillery. And third, you can use artillery tactically to take out his artillery one battery at a time, and he can't do that. He's going to have all this counter battery artillery that's going to fire at your infantry. That's the big difference. And while he's killing, infantry in one-star units that are in great cover, your artillery can take out his artillery. And that's the big advantage you have, is that you can outthink the AI. And this takes a while, and this takes, and it's like the dev said, you win through superior tactics. It always comes down to that. If you have superior tactics, you're going to crush the enemy, even on Legendary. So if you're thinking about playing Legendary, I recommend you do it. It's all about superior tactics. Giving your troops good weapons, and it's not the infantry. For the North, it's artillery. Yeah, it's all artillery. Artillery. I keep saying this in the comments section. Union artillery is OP. By the time you build, however many, 600 guns of all, my 600 guns are all good batteries. I have a couple of 10-pound Ord batteries for close support for my divisions in 4th Corps. But the rest of my divisions are all top-tier artillery. So 24-pound howitzers, 20-pound Parrotts, Jameses, just overwhelming firepower and a bunch of them. And when the Union artillery gets on the field, it's an unstoppable force. It allows the infantry to just roll over top of the enemy. And in this case, I'm going to get 9-1 at Fort Stevens. Part of it is, very good fortifications here, which we have. We get the fortifications in this battle. So that's great. The enemy got them. Well, I made use of fortifications in the last battle too. Yeah. So when you get these great fortifications in the end game, it's a good idea to make use of them and take advantage of them. Yeah, this unit here looks a little glitchy. I couldn't seem like it's almost like a ghost cav unit. I don't know exactly why. And also, of course, he just kind of retreated in the wrong direction, which is weird. But he's going to die. He's surrounded by a whole bunch of units. So I think one of my infantry units gets 4,500 kills here. One of my units in the fortification, I think, gets 4,500 kills. These are really good fortifications. And as you know, at Richmond, the enemy's going to get a whole bunch of them. So how do we kill them? Well, we're going to kill them with a whole bunch of artillery. That's what we're going to do. We're going to pound them to death with artillery, about 600 guns, and degrade the unit, and then get into melee 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units on top of one when we attack. And yeah, so superior tactics. It's always about superior tactics. So the other unit that is different on Legendary, and it's very different. Here I'm moving up my artillery. In the initial part of the battle, I will keep my artillery a little bit back, and then when the enemy stops charging like crazy, aggressive and fast, you see the enemy unit moving really slow. So you've taken away their, whatever it is, their morale, their condition, and they're slow and sluggish. At that point, it's a really good idea just to move your smoothbore artillery as close to the front line as you can. and preferably at an angle where pass-through damage doesn't hit you, and so you do as much damage to the enemy as possible. So yeah, one big mistake I see players make is they just don't move their artillery. I watch video after video and I keep thinking, where's the artillery? Where's the artillery? Why is it out of the battle? Why is it so far removed from the fighting? And I think that's a huge mistake because artillery has a huge effect on morale and how enemy units behave. It just crushes them. The morale shocks them and takes the fight out of them. So, yeah, anyway. So the other unit on Legendary that behaves much differently than on other levels of difficulty is the Skirmisher, which is really a sniper. They get an infinite number of sniper weapons, very good sniper weapons. And they have perks, which means they're often invisible. Oh, good. Here he is getting to melee. That's a good thing. Yeah, that's terrific. I wish he would charge into melee more. My commander's right there, giving a buff to melee to morale recovery. So normally, I mean, it's a little deceptive. In the early game, you don't want to be in a fortified position firing out like this because of all the debuffs. Notice how my units in the fortified position do not fire volleys. They don't fire volleys and they don't get perks. So the fortified position has to be better than firing in volleys that does more damage than this kind of firing, and also the unit perks. And it's not until this part of the game that the fortified positions are so good that it's better to be in the positions than not. So yeah, my units are just racking up kills and they get great buffs to cover, and they're not firing volleys, but they're still going to get insane number of kills in this battle. And yeah, 9-1. And basically I can just sit there and exchange shots with him all day. He's in the open. He can't win this. I mean, this is just, even on Legendary, he cannot win this. Yeah, I was kind of hoping that, I was very much hoping that Cav unit would just go ahead and charge right into melee. Well, I'm actually hoping his entire army just charges into melee, because this will be over in, much faster. So, as you can see, I'm taking my infantry and cav. My cav is going behind the enemy. My infantry is rolling up the enemy flank. I know there are 200 guns over there. I want to kill them. Yeah, over here, I've crossed the river, and I'm going to move the infantry up and then stop and then roll up all the artillery. That's a theme. If you've been watching my series, that's a theme. Stop moving the infantry and roll up the artillery and support before advancing. Makes all the difference in the world. Find an enemy unit and then pound it to death with canister from 24-pound howitzers. Yep, finally his cav got into melee and died. That's what I was looking for. That's a good thing. So there's his infantry. We're going to hit this guy with some canister. He's not going to last long. 3-on-1 infantry. Yeah, that's a good thing. Superior tactics, man. And yeah, we're just going to put the cav behind him. Keep my long-range guns. I've edited that out, but I hit pause. Make sure my long-range guns are focusing on his artillery. Dismount my cav. Most of the time my cav is dismounted, so it does twice the damage and takes fewer casualties when it gets hit. Yeah, it all works great. It all goes very well. So anyway, I was talking about his skirmishers. The thing about the enemy skirmishers on Legendary is they are broken. They're invisible. They have great range because they have perks. So they're going to be invisible because they have perks. They're going to be 100% efficiency. They're going to do enormous damage at great range. They're going to inflict a lot of casualties on you if they stand back and shoot. But the thing that's really surprising is these guys are the best melee units in the game on any level of difficulty. I think they're better than melee cav. They're, they're, they're unbelievably good, and they will charge right into you, which they shouldn't. That doesn't make any sense. Um, Skirmisher units charging into melee doesn't make the slightest bit of sense, but they do. They're very aggressive. They will attack. They'll get into melee. Um, and if one of his skirmisher units fights one of your infantry units 1-to-1 and your infantry unit is unsupported, his melee unit is his skirmisher unit is going to win that. Even if it's, say, 400 men in his unit and 2,000 in yours, he's going to win. So you have to treat these units with in a different way than you do on any other level of difficulty. I haven't talked much about his infantry. His infantry is 3-star, and he's going to have, at this point of the campaign, Fayettevilles and CS Richmonds. This is a good thing. I love this thing about Legendary. There are two things I really love about Legendary. One is he's hyper aggressive, more so than Major General. I love that. He comes to you and he fights, and that makes the battles a lot more fun. The other thing is he has great weapons. Now, you might think, well, that isn't a good thing because he's going to do more damage to you. But really, he's going to do damage to my infantry with his infantry. And I'm going to capture Fayettevilles and CS Richmonds. And the Fayettevilles are worth just an insane amount of cash. So I love the fact that he has Fayettevilles. That's a great source of revenue. And I love the fact he has CS Richmonds because I can equip a lot of my army with CS Richmonds. And those are really good guns. Those are guns I don't have to buy and that are really good weapons. I don't think they're worth selling because, well, it's a question of how much cash do you get for the CS Richmonds when you sell them. I'd rather have the CS Richmonds than sell them and buy 61s. So if they were worth more cash, maybe I'd sell them and buy 61s. But yeah. And in this playthrough, I'm just equipping my infantry with 61s. I'm not equipping them with 63s. My units have an efficiency, my best units, 50 or 60. As you've noticed, if you've been following the campaign, I've purchased almost no veterans. I purchased some in the beginning, which was a mistake and a waste of money. But I've replaced almost all of my losses the entire campaign with raw recruits. Just not concerned about buying any veterans at all. I've used the money that I saved to buy all of the 20-pound parrots that became available for sale, all of the Whitworths, Jameses, 24-pound howitzers, good rifles for my infantry. I just absolutely have had great success with this method on Legendary of just, you're going to take more losses, but I don't care. I'm getting an enormous number of kills. I think the reason I'm able to do this is, in this battle, getting 9-to-1. So I don't lose that much efficiency by putting in raw recruits. If I was getting 2-to-1, well, that would be a different thing. I'd have to buy veterans, and that would mean that I would have, well, it'd be a different campaign. So, yeah, and at this point in this battle, yeah, look, I now have all this infantry piled up. I don't really want to push the enemy because I know all these units will just rout to the other side of the river. So I'm just rolling up my artillery and letting my artillery just blast away at these guys. The red bar now, instead of being, 7-to-1 in the enemy's favor, the bar at the top of the screen, it's now 7-to-1 in my favor. This is over. The only question is, when does the battle end? I think I have a lot of time. It's only 11 a.m. At this point, I think this probably goes on, I don't know, I'd have to look it up on Steam. but it probably goes till very late. And even on Legendary, I mean, probably if I just roll my artillery up and blast away, we're going to kill all these guys. His units now are pretty small. Now, all I want to do is not trigger a mass rout of the enemy in some direction where I have to run him down. That's all I want to do. Just, I just want him to stay there and die. So yeah, I know from experience, if you push these guys too hard, they will all rout. Probably to the left and probably south. And then you get to chase them. And I really don't want to do that. So yeah, I'm telling my infantry to move forward, but I'm probably telling them to move a little bit too close to the enemy. I need to stay at maximum shooting range, I guess. Yeah, it looks like he's going to rout into the water. That's actually pretty good for me. Having him rout into the water where I have that 24-pound howitzer set up waiting on him. This is another case where I put a unit someplace where I knew it was going to be valuable later. Like maybe, and I do that. I'll say this is going to be valuable 2 hours from now and put a unit there. And right now that's really paying off. Infantry and artillery right there at the water's edge. Yeah, and you never want to get into melee with, say, 2 of his units. So that first unit shatters. He's in a very weak position. Yeah, and these units have been blasted to smithereens, so they're dead. So there we are. Yeah, actually, yeah, 4,200 after medicine. Holy cow, my best unit got 5,000 kills. So, yeah, 5,000 kills. Yeah, I'm looking at some of these numbers and yeah, why did those units not get so many kills? So 1 deceased officer. Of course he had scoped Whitworth's, not a surprise. He had Fayetteville's, he had Maynard's. So yeah, thanks for all the Fayettevilles. I'll take those. That's a big pile of cash. Holy cow, do we get a whole bunch of reputation. Yeah, the army's in good shape. For Richmond, I don't need my units to be 1,700. 1,650 is probably fine, except for 1st Division, which does a lot of the heavy lifting. The rest of the army can be much lower. I intended for all these units to fight at 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th Corps. I intended them to do a lot of fighting. They didn't. Now they're oversized. That's going to be a problem. He's at, his army force pull is at 53 to 58. He went up 7,000. Have to deal with that. I have 76 reputation to spend. Happy day. And the enemy looks like he has closing in on 90,000 for Richmond. He'll have way more than that. But I'm going to have probably 100,000 and most importantly about 600 guns. So 2 battles coming up. That ends Fort Stevens. Thanks.